Hey guys, welcome to Hip Hughes History. My historical heart is beating out of my chest because we're doing the presidential election of 1876. Probably the most contested presidential election in American history, right up there with the election of 2000. Two reform-minded governors, a Republican in Rutherford B. Hayes from Ohio, and a Democrat in Samuel Tilden in New York. And what's going to come out at the end of that election tunnel is a whole bunch of malarkey that's going to be really important. So giddy up for the learning. Let's go get her done right now. All right, guys, let's start with the Republicans because the Republicans are the incumbents in a sense. Ulysses S. Grant has been in the White House for 2 terms, and he actually considered running for a 3rd term. He thought that he could win the nomination, but he really didn't think he could win the election. Not only is the economy souring, but there's a humongous amount of corruption and scandals that are coming out of the Grant administration, starting with the credit mobilier scandal, and that has really tarnished the Republican image. Not to mention the corruption in a lot of the carpetbagger Republican reigns in state governments down south. Reconstruction is still going strong. So the Republicans are looking for fresh blood in a sense, somebody who can combat that image of corruption. So first they were going to go with James Blaine, the senator from Maine. He couldn't get enough votes on the ballots, so eventually eyes turned to the reform-minded governor of Ohio in Rutherford B. Hayes. Rutherford is going to make a run at it, really running on Republican platform issues like hard money, going after corruption, even though they're the ones that are doing the corrupting. He is a corruption fighter, so he's going to bring that along with him as well. But he's really going to be running on a reminder of the Civil War and this idea that we still have to protect African Americans in the South. He's not going gung-ho all towards Reconstruction and military occupation, but he's certainly taking more of a slow and steady viewpoint on withdrawing the military than certainly the Democrats are going to be. So Samuel Tilden's the man. He's going to bring along with him William Wheeler from the state of New York. He was a House member. When Rutherford B. Hayes was told Wheeler had got the vice president nomination, he basically said, who the heck is he? But he does balance the ticket. Being from the state of New York, of course, Samuel Tilden is the governor of New York. I just did a spoiler because now you know Samuel Tilden is our Democratic nominee. So just pretend I didn't say that, and now let's take a look at the Democratic Party. So Samuel Tilden is going to take it on the first ballot for the Democrats. He had a little bit of competition. Thomas Hendricks, a governor from Indiana, General Winfield Scott from the state of Pennsylvania, William Allen, a former governor of Ohio. But it's going to be Samuel Tilden. And Samuel Tilden has a record of honesty and integrity in the state of New York. He's what's called a bourbon Democrat, a classical liberal Democrat. Not liberal in today's sense, but in terms of the original meaning of liberty above all else. He believes in a conservative government. He's certainly against what he calls carpetbag tyrannies of these Republican administrations in some of the states that are still occupied under Reconstruction. And he believes in hard money policies. He believes hands off Wall Street. He believes in fighting corruption. He broke up Tammany Hall. He put William Tweed in prison. So this is a guy with some stars on his belt. That makes no sense. You know what I mean. They also believe in a nativist sort of policy. They believe in restricting Asian immigration, and they certainly don't believe in land grants for railroads and an active federal government. So he's going to go up against our man, Rutherford B. Hayes from Ohio, and it's about to get crazy, kids. So let's take a look at the campaign, and then we're getting to the results. My head's going to explode. These two guys agree on a lot. They agree on civil service reform and kind of anti-corruption ideas. They're both hard money politicians, but the one big disagreement is really going to be under the pace of ending Reconstruction, with the Republicans arguing that there still needs to be military protection for black rights in some of these southern states, certainly the states where the Republicans are still ruling, states like Louisiana and Florida and South Carolina, where they believe there's immediate danger to black voters and there needs to be a central government force down there to ensure those rights. And of course, the Democrats are arguing we need to go beyond the Civil War. The Civil War has now been over for more than 20 years. It's time to move on and let the Constitution run its course with local control over local issues. So, the economy wasn't doing well. I think that's certainly going to help Samuel Tilden. And really, the Republicans are bringing up the Civil War again. They're saying, look, not every Democrat was a rebel, but every rebel was a Democrat. And Samuel Tilden and his supporters would respond by saying that Republicans were waving the bloody shirt. If you think about it in today's terms, it would be like politicians using 9/11 to get elected. But the Democrats have a secret plan. Shh, don't tell anyone. It's called the Mississippi Plan, and it's quite terrible. But they're really going to be using paramilitary organizations, like a military arm of the Democratic Party. Not exactly the KKK, but they were called red shirts and white shirts. And they're going to use intimidation and violence. They're going to break up rallies. They're going to try to get voters to be fearful of going to vote. And that's going to be part of this campaign as well. You have to put that into the mix. The Democrats were also accused of putting out kind of hanky-panky ballots in the South where they would put out symbols for illiterate voters, and the Democrats were using the symbol of the Republican Party for their own candidates, which was a picture of Abraham Lincoln. Psych voters, we gotcha. Okay, kids, it's time to look at the electoral map. So if you take a deep breath, let's do it together. All right, let's take a look at the electoral map first before we talk too much. Okay, we can see that Samuel Tilden loses. First, he wins the popular vote. He wins the popular vote by more than 300,000 votes, 51% to 48% for Rutherford B. Hayes. Now, we all know that to win the Electoral College, you don't have to win the popular vote. It's only happened 4 times in American history, and the first time is 1876. And in fact, it's the only time that a candidate won more than 50% and still lost the election. But I'm going to keep my mouth shut. Look at that electoral map. We can see that it's a squeaker. 185 electoral votes for Rutherford B. Hayes, 184 for Samuel Tilden. He lost by 1 electoral vote, closest in American history. But when we look at that breakdown, we can see that Samuel Tilden wins all of the South, plus a few northern states, Indiana, New York, Connecticut, New Jersey. But he lost 3 southern states, and those 3 southern states, South Carolina, Louisiana, and Florida, were all held by the Republicans with military occupation. In a sense, they almost had split governments and they were in mini civil wars. So the returns from those states contradicted each other, and they were really big question marks. That added up to 19 electoral votes. Add 1 electoral vote because the governor of Oregon, who was a Democrat, disqualified one of their 3 electors from Oregon, claiming that that elector was a postmaster and that it violated the Constitution. There was a conflict of interest, so he replaced him with a Democratic elector who wanted to vote for Samuel Tilden. So at the end of the day, when we take away that 20, it's 184 for Samuel Tilden and 165 for Rutherford B. Hayes. Rutherford B. Hayes needs all 20 of those electoral votes that are question marks in order to become president, and it's going to happen. And I'm going to tell you how it happens right now. Dirty deeds done the street. Dirty deeds done. So we have a contested election. How excited is that? And the results go to Congress. Congress is going to have to figure it out, and there's a problem. First, the Senate is held by the Republicans, and the Democrats hold the House. So there's a lot of infighting about which is the proper legislative procedure to count these electoral votes, who's going to decide, and the calendar days keep slipping away as we get closer to inauguration. So finally, in January of 1877, Ulysses S. Grant steps in, and he proposes a neutral electoral commission, which is passed into law, and it's created with 15 members. It was made up of representatives from the House, from senators, Supreme Court justices, and the breakdown was 7 Republicans, 7 Democrats, and David Davis, who was a Supreme Court justice who was truly neutral. He said as he went into this commission, he really didn't know who he supported. So he was probably the fairest of them all. And then the Illinois legislative branch branch got their hands sticky and wet in all of this nasty business by appointing David Davis to the U.S. Senate to represent Illinois. Maybe they're trying to bribe him, they're trying to gain favor, but whatever the reasons, he actually takes the job, steps down from the commission, and now it's not balanced. They end up putting on Joseph Bradley, a Supreme Court member, who is a Republican. He says he'll try to be fair-minded, but he's a Republican. And guess what, guys? It comes out 8-7. All 20 electoral votes are awarded to Rutherford B. Hayes, and he's the president. Yay! Celebrate. Not so fast. The Democrats in the Senate are threatening to filibuster. They're saying there's no way we're going to go along with this. There's violence being threatened. There was actually shots fired into Rutherford B. Hayes' house when he was in Ohio hanging out waiting to figure out what was going on. And eventually, all of these politicians, they meet at the Wormley Hotel in Washington, D.C., very late February of 1877, and they strike a bargain, a corrupt bargain, a betrayal. And what that bargain is the Democrats agree we won't filibuster, we're going to let Rutherford B. Hayes take the office, and you Republicans are going to get every stinking Union soldier out of our backyard and allow us home rule. And that's what occurs. As soon as Rutherford B. Hayes gets in there, he starts removing those last troops that represented Reconstruction, and now we're going to have a solid white Democratic South where we're going to have Jim Crow and the KKK, and we're going to restrict black rights. What the Republicans were saying was true, that it was too early to remove those protections for black voters. But at the same time, the Democrats were correct by saying that these carpetbagger regimes that were controlled in Washington were corrupt. They were. So what are you going to do? I guess we're going to end up with Rutherford B. Hayes as a one-term president. He stepped down. He said he only wanted one term, and that's all he got. So guys, we hope that you understand something about the most contested election in American history, maybe except for 2000. Maybe you should go watch that video next. Check out all the elections that we've done down in the description below, where you can click the little playlist link and go through the interwebs to figure out which one you want to watch next. And then make sure that you go to the YouTube page and you click subscribe, because that's what people on the interwebs do when they like the videos they watch. Yeah, okay. All right, guys, I say it at the end of every lecture because I believe it with all my heart. Where attention goes, energy flows, and we'll see you guys next time that you press my buttons.